All right, let's talk about the ups and downs of the first Berserker KHAZAN, shall we? I have a lot of thoughts on this game. I'll try to be brief. I love Souls-likes. I've played almost everyone in existence. I think there are some great Souls-likes out there, like most of the From Software games, and then there are some rough ones like Dolmen and a few other ones out there. I would put this in the middle, and maybe even a little lower than the middle, and I'll tell you why. There are some things about this game that I love. I love the art style. I really liked the story. I think it's on top tier when it comes to Souls-likes. That's not usually up near the top. Maybe lore and world building and stuff, but not really full-on moment-to-moment story. The moment-to-moment story in this game is really good. I like the characters, the voice actors. It was pretty much bug-free, which so technically it was very well done. I think those are the main things that I liked, which that does not bode well because that means there's a lot. I think I have a lot of problems with this game. Here's the number one problem, and probably the largest problem. The game is too easy. I see my death counter says that I've died 209 times. So that probably makes it look like I struggled, but I really didn't. First of all, almost half of those deaths came from one single boss. The only challenge in the real game, in the whole game, I really struggled against Troka. She killed me like 80 times. The rest of those deaths are like randomly falling off of stuff, not paying attention, accidentally, getting distracted by whatever. The 5-6 deaths that come with just feeling out what a boss moveset is, that kind of thing. It's not like I went through and killed every boss on the first attempt. That only happened a couple of times, but the bosses killed me, other than Troka, somewhere between 2 and 11 times. There were a couple of bosses early in the game that killed me like 8-9 times. I think one of them killed me. Volbino killed me 11 times, I think. So that's where those 200 deaths came from. The game is not hard. I think it's because it's poorly balanced and it's broken. I picked the spear as the weapon of choice. We'll get into that more in a second. But it's so easy to stun lock enemies with the spear and the thrust move that I never really even had to learn how to play the game properly. The best thing about Souls-likes is when they're challenging enough and in a balanced way to force you to get good at them and force you to master the game. Even at the end of this game, fighting the final boss, I'm just button mashing, dodging all over the place, barely paying attention, tanking everything, because the game never forced me to ever really get good at it. I completely ignored whole aspects of the game. I never once used a consumable. I never had any hot items keyed in. I never touched the dual wield or the ultra or the great sword after the first level or so because, again, we'll talk about that in a second, but this game does not incentivize you to experiment with weaponry. It really incentivizes you to pick one and stick with it. And so I never touched, and even in the spear skill tree, I unlocked, I think, 2 skills and just used those the whole time and beat every boss. This game is far, far too easy to cheese. And yeah, there's an argument to be made that it's like, well, maybe if you just play it better and don't cheese it, then it doesn't matter. The game shouldn't give me an option. There's no Dark Souls game where you can just hit one button the whole time and beat the game. I was using the same moves over and over. A well-balanced game would not allow me to do that. So the game is just super poorly balanced. Let's talk about the weapons. Games like Nioh that have really great weapon variety and allow you to switch between weapons on the fly and stuff like that, and they have different movesets, those games are amazing. And they have great loot grinds. That's another good thing about this game. It has a really good loot system. I really, really did like the loot system. But games like Nioh that give you a lot of weapon variety and moveset variety and encourage you to switch weapons on the fly and try different things, love all that. I thought this was going to be that way when I saw that there were 3 different weapons. But the way that this game, in Nioh, they give you separate skill points for each weapon, and you have a button that you can hot switch between them. There's nothing like that in this game. So and plus the way that your skill points go, not for the weapons, but your skill points for your levels, the scaling for each weapon is specific to a certain attribute. So you have to pick early what you're going to use. It would be a bad strategy to say like, oh, I want to use a greatsword and a dual wield. So I'm going to put points into both of those, because then you're evening, you're spreading out your points. It's just, it was a no-brainer. And a lot of those attributes, or a lot of like attack power and things like that, goes up with your gear anyway. So the skill points, I just put them all into vitality, because nothing else made sense. You get more attack power with your gear anyway, and you like your better weapons. I put everything into vitality, just had a shitload of health. And then I built up things like attack power and stamina through gear, and that made the game super fucking easy. So the game, I don't like that the game forces you into choosing a weapon at the beginning. Yes, you can undo your skill points for your weapons and stuff, but I'm not going to do that every time I want to switch weapons. I'm not going to do that. And plus, I have to learn different moves. I'm just not going to do that. And the game never incentivizes you to do that, because it's so fucking easy with the spear that why would I change? Why would I change anything if I'm just cheesing enemies with just thrusting over and over with them until they die, just stun locking full-on bosses? So the game's way too easy. The weapon variety, the way that the game, I did not like how the game forces you to choose a weapon basically at the beginning, and decentivizes you from ever trying to experiment with other weapons. There's a bunch of balancing issues. We talked about the skill points for your levels. It doesn't make sense to do anything but put everything into vitality, because even past level 60, you're still getting 38 HP per level. So it's still good, and everything else is not good. The Revenants of Adversity, the Spirit of Advocacy, never touched it. That's another if I ever really struggled with a boss, maybe I would have thought about using the Spirit of Advocacy. The only time I thought about it was against Troka, and then I was like, at that point I was halfway through the game, and I was like, you know what, I've gotten this far, let's just go without it. So I never touched anything with upgrading any of the Spirit of Advocacy stuff, completely ignored all that. I have no comment on it, because I never used it, so I don't know if it was fun or not. But the Revenants of Adversity were boring as fuck. They're all the same. It's like the same mini boss over and over and over again, but you kind of have to fight them because they drop really good gear. They don't give a lot of XP, but they drop pretty good gear. So I'm just fighting the same Revenants over and over. The enemy and level design was pretty good. I liked all that. The actual going through the levels was fun. I should have mentioned that earlier. I did enjoy going through the levels. But toward the end, I was so disenchanted with the whole thing because it was getting so easy. Again, like in the second half of the game, the only times I was dying was like the few times I would die to a boss just trying to figure out how to parry, and then falling off of shit. That was really it. There were even the elite enemies that would pop up. They dropped really good stuff. You got good XP and stuff, so it was worth killing them. But there was no real challenge. It just... if I'm playing a Souls-like, and I'm not like super good at video games. I've played a lot of Souls-likes. I've played most Souls-likes, so I'm decent at the genre, but I'm not a master. I'm not good enough that I can just walk through a game like this without even having to get good at its systems. But that's what happened with this game. I just walked through it. I kept having to go back and check, like, am I playing on easy or something? I'm playing on normal. I did see that there was a harder difficulty. And so normally at this point in the video, I'd be like, well, I would recommend you play on hard if you're really into Souls-likes because it's too easy. But if you went to hard, then that Troka fight would be insane. Again, there's a balance issue. Ideally, with a Souls-like, there's a slow incline in difficulty. The game gets harder and harder. From Software games are really good about that. The Neo games are really good about that. There's lots of Souls-likes out there that they have that nice, satisfying incline in difficulty where things get harder and harder. Sure, there's a spike here and there in almost all of those games, but in this game, it was just dead ass. Well, there were a couple levels early on that, because you know you're pretty crappy and early on in these games that you're trying to figure out how to do everything. You don't have any skills yet, whatever. There was a little bit of difficulty with the first couple of bosses, first couple of levels, but it was like difficulty was kind of like this, not too bad, just kind of up and down a little bit. And then Troka, And then the rest of the game was just a flat line downhill slope. I never struggled again. So in a nutshell, I'm disappointed by this game. Oh, I have to say this. This game, the reason I didn't play this at launch was because it came out the same day as AI Limit. AI Limit is another Souls-like game, also with an anime art style. Came out the same day, got way less buzz. I decided to play that instead because I knew fewer people would be playing it because a lot of people were already talking about this game. So I was like, oh, I'll play I'll be the different one, and I'll play the game that's less popular. That game's way fucking better than this game. Now, I haven't read the reviews for this game yet because I don't read reviews until I give my own. But as soon as I'm done with this video, I'm going to go and read it. But I have a feeling this game reviewed better because there was a lot of buzz on it. People on Twitch and TikTok were playing it a lot. There was a lot of talk about this game. So I assume that it reviewed well because AI Limit did not. It got like a 67 or something on Metacritic. I don't understand because AI Limit has some of the same problems. It's not a perfect game. It's got some flaws, but the weapon variety is way better. The challenge is I wouldn't call it consistent, but it's at least got some challenge to it. The combat's way more fun. Now it does have some problems, like the level design and stuff is pretty drab and not very good. There's a couple other little issues with it, but there's a couple of bugs and stuff like that. But overall, I loved that game. I did not love this game. I still thought it was okay, but when it comes to Souls-like, this is in the lower tier for me. Just simply, well, because of all the stuff we just talked about. It's way too easy. It's got crazy balance issues. The skill levels don't make any sense. The weapon setup doesn't make any sense. That one boss, Troka, was incredible. I loved that boss fight. But that was the only part of the game that I really loved. So, anyway, we did it. We got here. That's what's important, I guess. No, we're not doing New Game Plus. We never do any of that stuff. Final bit of last bit of business here. It has been fun. I do think you were still worth the money, and I paid full price for you, so that's saying something. So we did have a good time with you, KHAZAN, but we are now going to uninstall you and never play you again. Bye. Appreciate you. Wish you were harder, though.